spinach, right? So it was just kind of focusing on look at how this healthy, organic, vegan spinach product is actually not healthy, and people are dying. So, I was thinking when I was reading about the quinoa that there seems to be this focus on a very tiny population, as opposed to actually focusing more on the reality that that's more omnivorous people that are interested in that. And also, there are researchers and people who gave a rebuttal saying that there are a lot of farmers that are actually profiting and benefiting from quinoa and the need for quinoa globally. And a lot of these farmers are actually not starving. And I've only really been thinking about this in the last few weeks. And I'm trying to figure out kind of how to navigate through it, what's actually really going on, how do I respond? I've tried to figure this out, and so far, I haven't encountered any vegans who, what you mentioned, who've decided to kind of abandon their vegan practice and try to do local husbandry and raising animals for food. I haven't actually met those people yet, but I have met a lot of omnivores who emailed me the article about, hey, what do you think about this, quinoa article? So I'm not really sure what to make of it yet, except that it really feels like the focus is trying to focus on vegans as the bad people. That they're the ones who are, at fault for why there is hunger in the world. Versus really looking at, maybe we can actually look at capitalism as the problem, and looking at the fact that a lot of people are starving because of the way particular foods and crops have been used for animals and animal production, right? So I think that was what I found really interesting is, why look at this really tiny percentage of the population versus actually looking at more of the structural problems that are producing poverty and hunger, and also looking at, whether you're a vegan or an omnivore, how just consumerism in general is causing a problem, for hunger. So, any more questions?
Hi, Reese. I'll make this really quick. So I'm no expert, and I may stick my foot in my mouth, I'm not sure, but I also feel that consumerism can also be activism. I think a lot of times with, everything with Prop 37, knowing who's for, who's against labeling, and then vowing to not purchase the companies that are fighting, to not have stuff labeled. But coming kind of close to home with what you were talking about with chocolates, and do I really need it, or is it something that I can do without? I work for an amazing local vegan chocolatier, and granted, you can't always be 100% sure when it comes to fair trade. A lot of it's a moneymaker for corporations and whatnot, so you can't be 100% sure if the fair trade label is accurate. However, the woman I work for, she's an amazing woman. She's an activist, a feminist, and she uses her passion for chocolatier and cooking to raise vegan awareness and ethical awareness when it comes to human rights, women's rights, and everything along those lines. So I do think as well that consumerism can be activism, providing you're smart about it and you do your research and you shop smart. So I don't necessarily think that it's reality for a lot of people to do without things that they can't grow, or just in general, I mean, it's the joys of life. Like, you want to enjoy, have some chocolate, or, go to buy that favorite shirt that you want. But just knowing and being aware of what you're contributing to, I think, is more important than doing without. So.
Yeah, I think this is a very difficult, subject to answer, because I do agree that at least in America, it's really hard to produce most of your own things because of just the way everything is structured. Now, yeah, we do rely on industry to provide us what we need, and then we have to buy it. So I do agree that. I guess my focus was more on the mere fact that most people actually don't know where their things come from, and that until, a few years ago, I didn't have a literacy either. And I guess my interest is, why don't we have that literacy? Like, why is it we also didn't know, for most of us who decided to transition into veganism, why is it before we had really no idea where animal products come from, how the animals are treated? So I guess I'm taking that a step further, where if I see that, vegan consumerism is supposed to be a way to help alleviate the suffering of animals, I also ask that people try to think more critically and really understand how to research what it means to buy these particular commodities that are supposed to be cruelty-free. So I guess I'm not advocating that one should just stop consuming and stop being part of capitalism, but I am advocating that a particular, a critical literacy around what it means to be a consumer, at least most of us as people living in America, what does that mean that we are consuming these particular products? And how does that kind of tie into creating or not creating a socially just world? So yeah, my focus really is on mainstream most of the population in America who really don't know where commodities come from. Like, they have no clue about the commodity chain, and why is that? How have industry powers obscured how that lovely piece of chocolate, or even if people who are omnivores, that piece of chicken got to you? Like, that's what I'm really interested in. How is it that we got to the point where it's just presented to us all pure and sanitized without even thinking further? And how do we find that balance where, yeah, not everybody has, 10 acres of land to grow and harvest their own food. So I'm just trying to figure out that, and I'm reading a lot of, if you read ethical consumption readers and research, there's people who agree with it, they disagree with it. Can consumerism ever be ethical? And there's all these different case studies. This is an ethical marketing company who they were able to, teach people how to actually do it the right way. And then there are other companies where they were just purely for profit, and they kind of jumped on the bandwagon of, well, it seems like green consumerism is really, really hot, so let's try to create our own marketing scheme, ethical marketing scheme, but not actually adhere to the principles of what it means to be ethical, just to make a profit. So these are the things I'm interested in, and trying to figure out how to have these conversations with audience members, people like, I guess, myself, who grew up in this culture of consumerism, and kind of, was just spoon-fed, it's normal, it's your individual USA right to consume, because that's how you show your freedom. How do I figure out how to create a balance where I'm not always consuming, but I also just don't completely give it up and, try to produce everything on my own?
I think we're going to wrap up your talk now, Breeze, and move on to Anthony. Thanks so much.
Okay, well, questions you can just write, and I'll respond. So I'm sorry if I wasn't coherent if I want to be. I'm just actually quite sick, and the baby was sick all night, so I'm just like a zombie. So I do apologize, but I also, if you read my blogs, I'm very upfront about how challenging it is to try to do all of this without childcare and no sleep for about 4 years. So do email me, breezeharper@gmail.com. I may not email immediately, but I will respond. Okay.